When a mother is pregnant, they are very optimistic. Well, the story was not different for me. However, little did I know that mine will take a turn. And I saw all those dreams that I had of my child just crumbling down. Welcome to My Mother's Voice podcast, where we share real life stories and advocate for neuro-inclusivity. I'm your host, Edna Myra, and you're listening to Mother's Voice. Today, I want to share with you a personal story of mine. This is the day everything changed for my family. In 2020, I was expecting my second child, and I was very happy about it. I was overjoyed. 2020 was the COVID year, and so having a newborn child was something very good. Well, at least in the COVID year where everything seemed to be, downhill. I remember my pregnancy journey was quite smooth, save for a day I was put on bed rest because I had a complication. In October 31st, the year still 2020, I lost a pillar in my life. I lost my mother. And I lost my mom to COVID-19. I was still hopeful because I knew at least the birth of this new child will bring me some sort of happiness. And like how it is, where sometimes in funerals you're told to remain strong, at least until the baby comes. So I obliged. I remained strong. I did not mourn. That way, I was trying to be very careful not to put my child at any risk. And come November 24th, I gave birth to my bouncing baby girl, 2.9 kgs to be exact. I loved it. Well, after birth, I remember now mourning. Because remember, I had just lost my mom. So for me, this was now a time to mourn. I didn't have enough milk supply because of my mourning. And this meant that I had to give my child none, or formula as they call it. So I remember trying the first formula, but my child puked it out. I remember trying a second different brand. My child could not stomach it. A third brand, my child could not stomach it. At this rate, I was becoming an expert in formula. The Cow and Gate, the Nan, name them. We sought the advice of a pediatrician who advised us to get a formula for the hyperallergic children. We remember even trying to ship it in from South Africa. My child did not even take it. And what this meant is that now we needed to look for an alternative. And that's when we started giving our child plant-based milk, because she could not stomach any milk from an animal, whether it was camel, because we tried camel milk, we tried goat milk. She could not stomach it. So with the plant-based, at least she was able to take something. And well, for me, it was okay. Fast forward, my child starts growing up or continues to grow up, and now she's interacting with people. She can give you a smile, a bit of eye contact. It was at 8 months when I realized something was terribly wrong. There was just something about this child that was not making sense. I remember when my child began to crawl, she would crawl on one leg. One was high, and one would be dragged along. And well, to me, that was okay. Well, at least she's moving. I remember when she started holding on to things and walking, she would tiptoe instead of putting her feet flat on the floor. I also thought maybe it's just a new style. What do I know? However, when she started interacting more with people, is when I noticed there was something different about how she did her things. I remember my child could not keep any eye contact. Even while breastfeeding, she would not keep an eye contact. She would not like looking at people's faces. Yet, this is something that children should want. Children prefer looking at people's faces. She would rather play, she enjoyed playing on her own. And whenever anyone would say bye, she didn't wave back. In my own words, my child just didn't like me because she did not want to interact with me. She did not want to be carried. It's like whenever you carry her or hug her, you give her a shock. Anytime you placed her on the lap, she will just slide down and go do her own thing. I will wonder what was wrong. Well, my husband and I took the child to the doctor, a pediatrician. And because she was below 2 years old, the pediatrician asked us to give it a little bit more time, give us a few tricks on how we could engage her. And we wait for 2 years so that we take our child to be examined. We did, we obliged. When she was 2 years old, we took her back to the pediatrician. We had done all her immunization right, according to the book. And when the pediatrician examined her, she referred us to an ECD center, an early childhood development center at Muthaiga, here in Kenya, Africa. By this time, our child was 2. She had not said any word yet. She was still doing the gibberish baby language. And it was a big concern because on average, by the time a child is 2, they should be able to babble a few words. At least a word or two here and there, try to make a sentence. Like you can't understand a 2-year-old child when they talk. It was different for my child. My child's world was silence. I did not hear any mama, any dada, or even just calling a name of a family member. This was very, very worrying. I knew something was terribly wrong. Well, at that time, it was terribly wrong. And for me, this was a case of an emergency because I had never come across a child who had speech delay or a child who would, just play with wheels. A child who will not want to interact with a doll or a car, just wanted something that is round and they will spin it and they will stay there spinning that toy round and round and round, even for hours. So we go to the intervention center and there's a whole queue waiting with their children, with their persons to be to be checked. And we are put on the waiting list and we had to wait about 3 months just to be seen with the development specialist. For me, everything was an emergency and I did not understand why no one was seeing my child. My child is not talking. You can't see the urgency in that? I mean, well, I later learned that it wasn't an emergency. And I learned that sometimes what is an emergency to you may not be an emergency to others. But it's because I did not know any better. So our turn comes and we go visit the ECD center, the Early Childhood Developmental Center at Gertrude's Muthaiga. And after an assessment, the doctor looks at us, asks us very many questions. How was your delivery? I tell her my delivery was normal. Did your child cry? I tell her, well, according to me, she did cry at the given time because the doctors around me did not raise any alarm. She asked me, did you have a tough pregnancy? I tell her, no, my pregnancy was quite smooth. And in my head, I'm wondering, why all these questions? It's the child we should be examining, not me. I mean, I don't feel sick, I'm okay. After all, the questions you're asking, they're like 2 years back. How am I supposed to remember all that? But all that was vital information for the doctor. She later began examining my child, trying to engage her in play, giving her toys, trying to see which one she picked, which one she left, trying to put her maybe in uncomfortable situations according to that time, according to the child, like holding her hand, trying to ask for a hug, trying to be near her, just to see how she'll react. And I remember looking at each other with my husband and wondering, okay, what is not happening here? The doctor sat down, wrote a few notes, and asked us a simple question back then. It was a simple question according to the doctor. And she asked, have you heard of autism? And we look at each other with my husband and we're like, yeah, we've heard of it. And she asked us, what do you know about autism? And I quickly respond, well, I know it's a disorder that some children may have. I've never interacted fully with someone on the spectrum, with the autism spectrum, but I've read a few things here and there, maybe watched a few videos. Why? Why do you ask? And the doctor tells us, well, your child is on the spectrum. She's autistic. And my heart sank. I remember seeing stars. It's almost like the world around me had changed. I didn't know this was what was waiting for me. And this is the day everything changed for my family. The doctor quickly tries to explain to us what autism is and what it meant for your child to be on the spectrum. She explains to us that autism is a spectrum. That means it's like wide range. And different children fell differently on the spectrum. That means some were high and others were low on the spectrum. Our child was in the middle. That means she wasn't so highly functional and did not depend much. It means she could be coached and trained and helped through her milestones. We are quickly given a history, of autism and what our next steps need to be. Our next steps was full of tests, hearing tests. Other tests I can't even pronounce because they have a long medical term. I remember that day, the drive back home was very long. There was some silence in the car because no one knew what to say. I didn't know what to tell my husband didn't know what to tell me. And I remember just breaking down. I remember mourning a child that was still alive. When a woman is pregnant or when a couple is pregnant, they have this vision of what their child would be, how they would look like. I remember I knew my child would sing. I wanted my child to be, a musician, to sing, to travel the world, to become this top person in the society, to make a difference. And I saw all those dreams that I had of my child just crumbling down. At this point, I knew that my dreams will have to be different for this child. Because the child is 2, she's non-verbal, she's autistic. So what is this thing of me wanting my child to sing? Will it ever happen? It was a dark time for my family, especially because we did not understand what autism is. I had so much questions in my mind. Why me? Why my child? What will my life look like? Why is my life turning out like this? Why is this child turning out like this? What is autism, for crying out? I remember even the doctor telling me, well, the real cause of autism has not yet been established. That means there is no specific thing that can be attributed to be the cause of autism. Autism has its symptoms, but there is no specific cause to it. That means we're just trying to manage the situation and trying to teach this child and train this child in a way that they can be more functional, in a way that their brain can help them. All this was confusing to me. Unfortunately, during that time, our minds just went into a mode of, let's fix this. So we were running up and down with the tests that we need to do. We are running up and down with therapies. And no one prepared me for the finances that came with it. You go here, you cough up money. You go there, you cough up money. Any intervention is money, money, money. Until a time we discussed with my husband and we needed to slow things down. We needed to talk to a therapist, someone who could understand, just to tell us what this world is all about and what it meant for your child to be on the spectrum. Tell us the cost implications. What are we looking at? What are the figures? And the research began there. And slowly I started accepting that autistic is what my child is. It's just who she is. Autism is part of her life. And I need to equip myself so that I'm able to help her and help those around her to live in an inclusive world. I remember asking God, telling him on how heavy this burden is, and that if at all I'm supposed to walk in this journey, that God should give me a burden for it so that I do it out of obedience from God. Kill whatever it is that I'm feeling, because I was feeling like this is not my life. Why am I going through this? Why is all this happening? And pick it as a need. Pick it as an obedience from God to walk through this journey. Pick it as a burden. Well, all is not lost. We had happy moments. I mean, that's why I'm seated here, right? Now, this journey with autism birthed something I could not imagine it would birth. It birthed a voice for the neurodivergent people. It birthed a voice for children whose brain think different and they've been casted away. It birthed a voice to wake up people. You know, they say it takes a whole village to care for a child, but it only takes one child on the spectrum, one child who is neurodivergent, to raise the consciousness of a village. And for me, this was it. With this, I arose and began speaking in spaces where neuro-inclusivity needs to be had. I arose and started giving neurodivergent parents hope. It rose a hero in me because I wanted my child to live a normal, well-deserved life by the time she's 20, 30, 40, 100. That she will not get to be put aside because of who she is. One thing I have learned is that autism is not a quick fix. It's not a tragedy. It is simply a way of someone experiencing the world in a different way. For example, my daughter has this unique way of noticing patterns. She has this unique way of sensing the environment around her. She could read by the age of 2. yet she is non-verbal, yet she does not communicate through words. So it's simply a way of experiencing world, and it is going to be easier when you understand how your children or how these people, how the neurodivergent people experience the world around them, so that we too, in a different way, in our own ways, could also experience it. If you're listening to the sound of my voice and you are a parent who has just received the diagnosis of their child, that their child is neurodivergent, that means their child has autism, is dyslexic, has ADHD, and many other neurodivergent conditions, I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to know that your feelings are valid. Whether you're feeling sad, whether you're feeling defeated, whether you're feeling abandoned, whether you're feeling disappointment, your feelings are valid. Take time, understand the situation you are in, do your research, get to know the condition your child has. Take one step at a time and seek help where needed. I want you to know that your child is still that wonderful, special person that you knew before the diagnosis. And there's so much more. There's so much more power, so much more potential in your child than just the diagnosis. Your child is more than the diagnosis they've received. If you're a parent on this journey, and it's been a while since you began this journey, I want to cheer you on. You're doing great, Mama. You're doing great, Papa. Keep on walking with your child. Keep on learning your child. Keep on evolving with your child. There is so much more to discover yet. The journey is not over yet, but I can assure you it will be a fulfilling journey. Comment down below of tips and trips that you have, that you're using along your journey. Share how you've been able to walk this journey with those who are just beginning the journey. And even those in the journey, you never know, someone might learn a trick or two from your experience. If you're listening to me and you don't have a child who is neurodivergent, thank you. Thank you for giving me a listening ear. It is these small things that you do that really make a great difference. Thank you for wanting to learn about our world. Thank you for being here with us. And if you're watching this and you are a neurodivergent person, I want to tell you that you are special, that you are loved, that you are felt, and that you are so much more than the diagnosis. It's going to be a great life for you. And I cannot wait to see how this wonderful world unfolds for you. Thank you for joining me on this first episode of Mother's Voice podcast. I hope my story has inspired you to take action, whether that action is advocacy, listening, or supporting with an open heart. Follow us on all podcast platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and any of your favorite podcast platforms. Remember, together we can create a world that is all-inclusive, where every child is heard, loved, and nurtured. Until next time, I'm your host, Edna Myra, and you're listening to Mother's Voice.